Hello, and welcome to the Dance Physio Podcast, a podcast designed to explore ideas and foster discussion around dancer health and wellness. We're here to challenge the status quo, bridge the gap between dance science and the studio, and help change the landscape of the dance industry for the better. I'm your host, Erica Mayall, a dancer turned physiotherapist who is deeply passionate about leaving the dance world better than I found it. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dance Physio Podcast. I am super excited today because we have another guest episode for you. And today I am joined by Tamara Thompson Levi. And Tamara is the founder, director, and CEO of Shine Dance Festival and the Dance Leadership Institute. Like many of us, Tamara found her second home in the dance studio when she began training at the age of 3 in Edmonton, Alberta. She went on to have a successful professional career and has danced on stages around the world for companies including Alberta Ballet, Klein, MAC Cosmetics, New Balance, and Festival Cruise Line, as well as appearing on screen in an assortment of TV movies, commercials, music videos, and the award-winning dance film Black Angels. In the early 2000s, she began teaching, leading masterclasses, preparing students for exams and competitions, and teaching at the post-secondary level. She is deeply committed to promoting a wellness-centered approach to dance culture and seeking to create a more holistic environment for the next generation of dancers. Tamara started Shine Dance Festival. Through her unique vantage point as a competition director, she has become a mentor and leader in Canada's dance community, leading live and online programs and events that bridge communities and empower dancers, educators, and business owners. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for that lovely intro.
I'm so excited to have you on. Tamara is local to me in Vancouver, so we get to chat frequently and have had lots of great conversations. So I'm so glad she agreed to come on and chat with all of you listeners today as well. So just to get us started, question I always lead off with kind of all of our guests, and I alluded to it a teeny bit in your bio here, but can you tell us a little bit about what like your earliest memories of dance are, or how you fell in love with dance, however you want to approach that question?
Oh, I like that question a lot because I think it's so important. It really colors, I think each person's individual journey. So for me, I was placed into a tap jazz class at age 3. And after my very first class, every week, all I said to my parents, this is what they tell me, is, when is it Tuesday? When is it Tuesday? Because I couldn't wait to go back. And I think it had a lot to do, of course, with the teacher, and that she really instilled a love of expression and created such a healthy and safe environment for all of us.
That's so awesome. So you grew up dancing in Alberta. Can you tell us just a little bit about what that looked like? Was it more of like a competition sort of dance studio, more performance-based, exam-based? Like what did your sort of training look like growing up?
Yeah, so I feel fortunate to have trained growing up where and when I did in Edmonton in the 80s and halfway through the 90s. I did go to 2 different studios predominantly where ballet training was a huge part of our training. Both were competitive studios, so I did start competing at age 6. So that was a huge part of my competitive life, or of my dance journey life. But definitely ballet was a huge priority for our training. So I'm grateful for that as well. And in addition to that, I had other outside of the studio opportunities, which were actually very supported. So I did Ukrainian dancing with an outside organization. There were times that I did ballet training with a different school. So I did have quite a varied background, even though I was primarily at 2 studios.
Yeah, that's super interesting that was kind of supported, especially with pursuing different dance styles even, but even just training at different places, because that isn't always the case. Sometimes you hear about opportunities being restricted or studios wanting to sort of have dancers focus all their kind of time and attention in one location. And sometimes we hear about it in places maybe more so in the US than in Canada, but where like school dance teams are a really big thing. And so then there's this kind of competition over time almost between like the studio versus the school dance team, and like how you balance that out. So that is maybe in some ways kind of unique that was supported for you when you were growing up. Mm-hmm. So growing up, danced in Alberta, and then obviously you left Alberta. I presume that was to pursue a professional dance career. I don't know much about what was going on professionally in Alberta at the time, but we're kind of roughly the same age. And so I feel like I maybe have an idea of what was going on. But can you tell us a little bit about that sort of transition into a professional career and where that took you?
Yeah, I mean, I actually stopped dancing my last year of high school. I just needed a bit of an emotional break, I think. And I think it was that year off that really helped me realize, like, I'm not done yet. I haven't finished. I need to see if and where I can take this. And it was actually through going to Fusion Dance Camp that I made some connections with people based in Vancouver. I also had a couple of the dancers from my studio who had graduated and moved out here to apprentice with Ballet BC. So I got to come do a little discovery trip in my graduating year of high school to check it out. And so those things sort of led me to Vancouver. I knew I wanted to move out. I knew I wanted to leave Edmonton. So I thought, I'm going to move to Vancouver and I'm just going to give it a shot and see what happens. I am 5 feet tall. I don't have the ideal body type for dance. And at the time, they were looking a lot for the girl next door, like blonde hair, blue eye. That was kind of the really desirable look. I was not that either. So I came out kind of knowing that it might just crash and burn, but I thought I'll give it a go. And here I am almost 30 years later, and I am still in the dance industry. So
that's amazing. So transitioning or pivoting just slightly, because I do want to get into talking about like your companies and sort of what you're up to nowadays. So you founded Shine Dance Festival 20 years ago, basically, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But I'm curious because I know that one of your biggest sort of reasons for creating Shine was to have like a really holistic and dancer wellness centered kind of dance competition. And I'm wondering what it was that led you to either see the need for that or want to create something that's maybe like slightly different than what the status quo was at that time, or still is maybe.
Yeah. So the answer to that question is that I feel lucky to grow up when and where I did, because the competitive scene, even though it was competitive, meaning, studios were there and they all wanted to be successful and, win awards and things like that. For more than half of my time, until I was 12, we only had one local festival, Alberta Dance Festival. So it was the one time of year where all the studios were in the same place at the same time, coming together and having this experience. And it was a really community-oriented experience. So we were taught from a very early age that at competition, whoever you see backstage, you wish them good luck when they come off stage. You give them some kind of like a compliment. Before we would go on stage for awards, the tradition was that every single person who was going on stage for awards from all the different studios would stand in one big circle, cross our arms, link pinkies, and do this good luck buzz. And so we grew up with that. We grew up seeing our teachers interacting with each other backstage as friends, not as enemies or competitors. Yeah. So that was my introductory experience, if you will. After age 12, we started to get other competitions, but as long as we were in Edmonton, it still kind of had that same vibe and that same community aspect to it. We then started traveling and seeing and experiencing other things, but we always kind of just behaved in the way that we had learned for so many years. So fast forward to the early 2000s, I'm in Vancouver. I've started teaching in addition to dancing and choreography, and I'm going to competition with my students, and I'm trying to connect with teachers backstage. I don't really know anybody because I was in Vancouver to start my career, but I was not here for very long. So I, had left for a better part of a decade, come back, didn't really know anybody. And any attempt to sort of connect with people was kind of brushed off. And I found it really hard to make connections. I felt my dancers also did not get that experience at all. And in a lot of cases, I didn't see a lot of benefit to them having that competition experience. The competitions were very much about like, how big is the trophy? What's it made of? How much money is it? Who got first, second, and third place? And that was the focus. And I just felt like it was so different from my experience. And I wanted to create something more inclusive, something that was more focused on the educational aspect of competition and 100% on creating a community.
Amazing. I love that so much. And what I know of, like being at Shine events in the studios, I know who participate, like that is definitely what you have done, is created a community there. Like it is a different vibe than some of the other competitions. Like they all kind of have their own unique thing. Can you give us a few examples of things that you guys do differently at Shine that either help to create that community or just like kind of promote the more like dancer, like the holistic dancer experience at Shine? Because I know you guys do a few things that are a little bit maybe unique or just slightly different than some of the other competitions we see on the competition circuit right now.
Yeah, it's hard. In a way, it's hard to answer that question because I don't know a lot about what's happening at other competitions.
Fair.
I've sort of been in my bubble for so long.
Yeah.
But, you know, with respect to our awards, for example, I really tried to approach what awards we give, how we give them, and who we give them to as part of what defines our unique culture, if you will. We really want to recognize dance excellence, but more than just dance excellence, right? We want to recognize the other valuable life skills that we see in dancers, whether it's on stage or behind the scenes. So we have Shine Spirit Awards that are awarded by our staff for when they see, and this can apply to a dancer, a teacher, a parent, anybody in the building, doing something that is noteworthy, that really promotes our values and our culture of community and of youth empowerment. So Shine Spirit Awards are one way we do that. I've also felt it was really important to recognize and value other skills seen on stage by dancers. So those are now called our Shine Bright Awards. And these are ones where adjudicators get to recognize things that they see that don't necessarily play into the score of the dancer and affect the outcomes in terms of placements and such. So that's one way we do it with awards. We also have our top 10 intensive. So our top 10 dancers at each event earn their way into a special full day of master classes and community building. Because again, I wanted to create an award that was more than just like a trophy or a piece of paper or a financial reward, if you will. And really that day is about bringing together these dancers who, if they do continue in the world of dance, will be each other's peers. You know, they will either be the teachers who see each other backstage at events, competitions, conventions, or who may end up working together down the line. And so it's really beautiful to start creating those friendships and connections for them before they actually embark on those careers.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's such a great, just day for dancers to get to participate in. Just for the listeners, like I know from the outside looking in, it includes things, it's almost a bit convention-like, but it also includes things like, you know, learning how to like work on camera, like dance for camera, and you do like photo shoots. And it's just like such a fun day for the dancers where they get so much value out of it as like a bit of a reward that, like you said, isn't just another trophy that goes on their shelf that maybe never gets looked at again or that sort of thing. So I love that. One of the other things, and again, you made a really good point that you're probably not as aware of what you guys do differently versus other competitions. So I may be in a bit of a unique perspective because I work with so many dancers from so many different studios that I really hear like all the stories of every competition out there because studios participate in different ones. So one of the things that I know that you guys do that not all competitions do, although more are starting to, is limiting, or maybe that's not the right word, but kind of having rules around the number of like kind of tricks and things like that that can be in routines in certain categories. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that and like where that came from, like how you guys decided that that was part of your sort of rule book? That's not the right word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. For me, because it's a competition, one of the most important pieces is really the integrity of the competition and making sure that it is fair across the board, that everybody has an equal opportunity, you know, to shine, if you will. And also because from the adjudicator side of the table, we need to make their job somewhat straightforward so that when they're watching a category, let's say of jazz dancers, they are assessing the same thing in the same way. As soon as you have a routine in a category that doesn't quite belong because it's not the same as the others, it becomes very difficult to fairly adjudicate all of those routines within one category.
For sure.
So for me, in everything that we do, that integrity and keeping it as fair as possible is always really at the forefront. And what we've seen is particularly with acro has become very popular. It is an incredible skill, and I'm so impressed. It's not something I ever had the opportunity to learn or to train in, and I can see that it has exceptional value because it really helps dancers become strong. It's kind of like ballet in another way, right? It's that conditioning that really helps with strength, which can be very helpful with safety. So I appreciate it. I want to have it in competition. But when you start to have routines that have a lot of acrobatics, now you're not comparing apples to apples in the jazz category. You're comparing apples and oranges or apples and Asian pears, and it's not quite the same. So it's a challenge for adjudicators. And again, it isn't quite as fair. So really what we're trying to do is just keep the playing field at competition as fair and level as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that, because you definitely see that where people are sort of like, okay, well, at what point do tricks become like more important than, technique or artistry or all these other elements of dance? And then it's like, are we, at a cheer competition, or are we at like gymnastics? Or it becomes a little bit of like these blurred lines. So if you can keep them in separate categories so they're actually being adjudicated fairly on those, then I think it makes it much easier and a more enjoyable experience for everybody, like even the people not doing those tricks, to be in a category where they're not being compared against people who are doing some really impressive kind of tumbling skills or things like that.
Yeah, and it pushes them to, continue development and training in those specific lanes that they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. One more, just last thing that I want to wrap up with about Shine, and then I want to move on, and I do want to chat about the Dance Leadership Institute as well. I know that you guys are approaching your 20th anniversary season this coming year. I know that you guys have some fun things planned. Are you able to tell us? I don't know how much of it's public yet. So if there's anything that you want or are able to like share with us about what's coming up for the 20th anniversary season, I would love it. And it's totally fine if you're like, nope, none of that's public knowledge yet.
Oh, I am so excited to talk about it because we just announced it a week ago, actually.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
A week ago is exactly 1 year to the event itself. So it begins on July 3rd of 2025. And we have come up with a special event. It will be a little bit of competition, convention, and a very special sort of regional finals and gala night, which will include a DJ and a dance and some special guest performances, including a special top 10 performance and a dinner banquet. And then we have all sorts of community building activities built into the event. So we're going to have an evening at the PNE for people. We're going to have an ice cream social scavenger hunt, maybe go to the pool party. And we are going to also have a Shine Kids Club so that people can come out with their family, and siblings who may not be dancing or may be looking to build sort of connections with other kids who are there not dancing will have that opportunity as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to bring the community from across the province together. We do get people that travel to different competitions outside of their local area, but it's not very often that we get people from all the different events across the province to come to one central event. So that's very exciting.
That's super exciting. So what are the dates again? It's July 3rd to 6th?
July 3rd to 6th. Yeah, 2025. Awesome.
And is that...
Mark your calendars.
Yeah, mark your calendars. Is that going to only be open to people who participate in the like local regional events, or is it also a standalone event that if like studios wanted to come for more of like the convention kind of like just participate in that as like a year-end wrap-up event? Is that a possibility?
Yes, it is open to everyone. There's no pre-qualifying requirement. Cool. So for the regional finals component, which will be on Sunday in the second half of the day, there will be dancers who pre-qualify at the spring events. Right. But the July event itself will also offer that opportunity to pre-qualify for that finals event on Sunday. Yeah, so it is open to everybody.
Amazing. That sounds awesome. All right. I want to move on a little bit because I do want to talk about the Dance Leadership Institute as well. So rather than me doing a poor job of trying to summarize what that is, can you just tell us a little bit about the Dance Leadership Institute?
Definitely. So the Dance Leadership Institute, was created because of my unique vantage point as competition director. I get to see lots of different studios, and I have really long relationships with many studios, and I see what works and I see what doesn't work, and I see where people really excel in running their businesses, and I see where people really struggle. And a lot of people, particularly in the last 5 to 10 years, have come to me when they have challenges, and I've sort of transitioned into a bit of a mentorship role just organically, not through some conscious choice to do so, and so the Dance Leadership Institute is a way of trying to address some of those challenges, provide a professional development, if you will, education support for dancers, for dance teachers, for business owners, and to do it in a way that builds community, that brings people together to recognize that they're not alone, that they all share a lot of the same challenges, and that we can work together and share and find new ways to approach things as, the industry and things are always changing.
Amazing. And I know you guys have sort of like a kind of signature program, I don't know if that's what you call it, but that's sort of how I would kind of to explain it. And then some other programs that you offer. Can you tell us a little bit about like what the signature program is, but then also some of the other kind of programs that you offer?
Yeah. So our signature program is called Leadership in Dance. And this is now a certification. So I started developing this program during COVID when I was doing a lot of online sessions for dance teachers. And I've evolved the program now to become a certification. It really focuses on what is leadership. How do we bring leadership into the dance studio? And it's designed to give people really the foundational skills to be that leader in their dance business, in their dance class. We cover lots of different things, from values to your vision for the dance industry to safety and wellness and how you address that. And to certify people, you have to complete a course. It is in real time. It is not asynchronous. And then there are assignments that have to be evaluated in order to get the certification. And it's the same for all of our certifications at TDLI. Our other certification program currently is our Master the Art of Adjudicating Dance Adjudicator certification, which has been running for 3.5 years now. And of course, as a competition director, I've been working with adjudicators and preparing them to come and do an amazing job at my events for many years. So that was a very natural transition to start, educating, I guess, in the adjudicator sphere. I've also been adjudicating for 25 years. So I have that perspective of what it's like to be in the adjudicator's chair, but also to be the competition director and understand what's important, how to get hired, how to give amazing feedback that is very valuable and rich. So dancers really walk away with tools, how to score effectively and consistently, and also how to learn the different organizations that you're working for so that you can help them achieve their vision. In the fall, we're going to be launching a mentorship program. So more to come on that. That is currently in development. And each year we do an annual dance teacher retreat. This year's is going to be in Whistler in October. And I'm hoping to have more than one per year, maybe starting in 2025. So those are the programs currently on offer. The majority of them are online programs. I really want to do more live programs. So with time, that is sort of the goal, is to have more live events. But for now, we have a lot online, which means we can really bring together educators from across Canada and North America, and get a lot of different perspectives and a lot of sharing happening.
Yeah, that's amazing. So between the Dance Leadership Institute and Shine, you definitely excel at leadership and have a lot of like really excellent leadership qualities. And I'm curious if there's training that you've done or things that you've done to really work on honing those skills, or if it's something you think like just has come more naturally to you. I know that dance in general is like such a fantastic activity for people to participate in as children. They often develop a lot of leadership skills, but I'm just curious where your leadership skills have come from, because I think it's unique in the dance world. We see a lot of people who maybe have a lot of teaching skills or skills within one specific area, but not necessarily the kind of broader leadership skills that you obviously possess.
Well, I don't have formal training. I mostly attribute it to, 20 plus years of being a business owner and learning on the job how to address situations and spending a lot of time. I mean, I read a lot, and I like to have conversations about these things and kind of go deep and talk to people and get different perspectives. So I'm I'm a bit of a self-driven, self-educator, if you will. Like I love to learn, but my favorite modality is the one that's very immediate and in the moment and goes at my own pace, be that, sometimes like real rapid deep dive and sometimes like just really observing things over time and having conversations over time. I have worked with what is now called WeBC, or the Women's Enterprise Center. I actually started through taking courses with them when I was a young business owner, and then over time was approached to become a mentor for WeBC. So I do have some training in mentorship through WeBC. But beside that, most of the leadership skills have really come through practice, and being in business and being a teacher in the dance studio.
Yeah, fair. And I feel like some of that's maybe even just like part of your personality to some degree, because you seem like the type of person who just like, if you see the need for something or see something that you want to exist, you're just like, well, I'm just going to go create it, or I'm going to go do it. Because even if you like think back to, when you were talking about being a young dancer in Alberta and you were like, well, I'm just going to go see what happens in Vancouver. So I don't know if that's something that's like been part of your personality since you were really young, or if there was anything in particular that kind of, like led you towards that, but you definitely just have that ability to go and be like, well, it'd be really neat if this type of thing existed. I'm going to go out and create it, which not a lot of people do. Like a lot of people kind of are like, oh, wouldn't it be neat if this existed? And that is like the end of where their thoughts are. So I feel like to some degree, maybe just part of your personality. I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's definitely a part of my personality. I realized, fairly recently that, the entrepreneurial spirit has always been there in me. My first real, business that I ran was, I must have been about 14, and I decided I wanted to teach dance. And I did a dance summer school for the little kids in my neighborhood at my house.
Amazing.
So that's where it all began. On the flip side, I'm not a leader in every situation. I think it sort of came out of me with time and with experience. With time and experience, you develop a certain level of confidence in your ability and to handle certain situations or to address certain conflicts. And so the more you practice and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And then you start to realize, oh, like I have kind of almost a system for this, and I can share this with other people, or I can, advise other people based on my own experience. So
yeah, it's like that sort of saying that I think there's a saying that's like experience breeds confidence, or action breeds confidence. It's like, as opposed to like waiting until you feel confident to do something, it's like the doing of something that gives you the confidence as you realize like, oh, okay, I can figure this out, or I can figure out how to do this. Mm-hmm. One last question, just that kind of ties Shine and Dance Leadership Institute together. I'm aware of the time. I won't keep you forever. But in both of those businesses, I see a big connection to you, like values, and you being very strongly grounded in what the values are of maybe your own personal values, but also of both of those organizations. And it seems like you use those values to kind of guide decision-making within those organizations. And I would love it if you would talk a little bit more about where that came from, like if that was a conscious decision, or again, if that's something that just organically happened, and whether that was something. I know like creating community is obviously important to you, but just there definitely seems to be a lot of grounding and other values within your businesses as well. So I would love you to chat about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of both, because I think that, whether it be with a competition or as a teacher in the dance studio or just making decisions in your everyday life, your decisions ultimately are guided by your values, whether you realize it or not. Mm-hmm. And I think what happened for me is, the more time you spend thinking about your business and trying to consciously cultivate, your business values, your vision, your mission, and understand what it is you're doing and why it is you're doing what you're doing, they just become clearer and clearer. And I think the moments for me that they've become the clearest is when I've had a really difficult situation, whether it's having to deal with a situation at competition that is difficult, where you have to have a difficult conversation with somebody, or you have to apply some rules to somebody and it's not going to go well, and you need to figure out how to have that conversation so that everybody feels good about it at the end. All of those things really are guided by your values. I mean, you have to make a certain decision because you feel it in your gut. You know that's what you have to do to feel good at the end of the day. And it's like, how do we get everybody on the same page? So it's a little bit of feeling and knowing before you maybe consciously know, and then over time of developing your business and marketing. I mean, every time you're putting anything into words about any business, you have to think about what you're saying and how you're saying it and why you're saying it that way. And when you've crystallized, okay, these are our values, like Shine, we are empowerment and we are community, then that makes all of your decisions easier. It makes you have a framework coming up with
base them off of,
to base decisions, to base marketing, to base policies, to base hiring, and everything really comes down to those values. And that is a lot of what we focus on at the Dance Leadership Institute, because if you really take the time to get clear on your values, everything else becomes easier. And it does, like you said, provide the framework, gives you the roadmap for everything else you're going to do in your business.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Because that's definitely what stands out to me with both of your businesses. Although they're like in the same industry, they are different in terms of like what you're offering and what you're providing, but they're very similar in that you can tell that they're both very much like grounded in those values and very much like living out those values as the businesses operate. And you don't always see that with businesses. So I love that. Is there anything else you would like to add in that I haven't touched on in terms of either Shine or the Dance Leadership Institute before I head into our rapid fire questions?
No, I think we've really covered everything I can think of. I mean, yeah.
Amazing.
Let's go for it.
All right. So I have 5 questions I ask every guest who comes on the podcast. They're not hard. They don't have to be one-word answers, but they are meant to be kind of like a little bit like first thing that pops into your head. So you don't need to overthink them too much. So first question, what's your favorite genre or style of dance? And if you also want to tell us why, that's great, but you don't have to.
I have to say jazz. It's just the first place that I felt at home, and it's a place that I still feel at home. And that can be any iteration of it. It can be lyrical jazz. It can be contemporary jazz. It can be Broadway jazz.
Amazing.
Jazz.
Love it. Would you rather be on the stage or in the studio?
On the stage.
All right. If you could dance with anyone or share the stage with anyone, any dancer, past or present, who would it be and why?
Wow.
And it doesn't have to be super deep. Some people are like, my best friend who I grew up dancing with, like it doesn't have to be.
You know what? Yeah, it would be people that I grew up dancing with. 100% it would be those people. And I actually got to do that in 2019 because our studio had a 50th and like a 50th reunion, and we all did a dance together on the stage, and it was the highlight of my year.
That is amazing. That sounds so fun. What's one thing you would go back and tell your younger self as a dancer?
Take care of your body and wear sunscreen.
All right. Very good advice. I feel like that advice applies to everyone, not just dancers, but yes, love it. All right. And final question. If there's one thing that you could change about the dance world as it is right now, what would it be?
Get clear on your values and lead from those values.
I love that. That just wraps everything up so nicely. Before I let you go, how can people get in contact with you if people want to connect or reach out, or where can they find either Shine or the Dance Leadership Institute?
So shinedancefestival.com is where you can find everything Shine and get in touch with me and with us. And the danceleadershipinstitute.com is where you can find everything to do with the Dance Leadership Institute and get in touch and find your way to our social media. Yeah.
Amazing. I will put both of those in the show notes so people can find you and see all about your great programs and the super fun Shine event coming up next year. unless you have any further comments or anything you want to add in, I will wrap things up there. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you so much, Tamara, for coming on the podcast today. It has been a pleasure to chat with you. And I know our listeners will get so much value out of what you shared with us. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.